everyone, my name is Yakshini Priya and welcome to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be trying out the Mungyo Professional Watercolors 48 set and the Canson XL watercolor paper. I may be pronouncing the name of the paints incorrectly, I apologize for that. But recently I did a art haul video. I will put the link in the description box below if you haven't seen that. And I went to an art stores and then I purchased different watercolors as well as some different papers to try out. Now just a reminder, I'm not sponsored by any of the brands or products that I'm using. I bought this with my own money by myself just to try it out and see how they work and if it will be a good addition to my current products that I'm using. So the set comes in a metal tin. Now they all are individually wrapped. I did have to unwrap each one and then place it in. I did rearrange the colors according to what I prefer. And the paper that I'm using is the Canson XL paper. It has a bit of texture but not too much of texture, so I like that. It is spiral bound but it does have perforated edges, so you can remove a sheet from it when you are working. Now I do swatch all my colors for all my paints or all my art products, color pencils. I swatch them out myself just so that I have the idea of what the color actually looks like, because sometimes on the packaging the color is not the exact color that it is. So now I'm just using some masking tape just to stick my paper down onto my cutting mat, which is on my tabletop, and I'm just doing that so that if I do use too much water, there mustn't be too much of buckling. And if that does happen, which it didn't really happen with this particular piece, but if that happens, all you do is just let your painting dry and then leave it overnight under a couple of heavy books. In the morning your page will be flat. So that's not a major issue with this. So now what I'm doing now is I'm using a water-soluble graphite pencil just to draw in my Kingfisher. So I'm looking at my reference folder and I'm drawing in the Kingfisher and trying to get all the proportions correct. All the supplies I'm using will be listed in the description box below as well. Now when I started painting, I started using the water-soluble graphite pencil so that I don't have harsh graphite lines. And I also added some of the highlighted areas with the white paint, which came on really strong onto the paper. And now I added some brown to the eye, and then I'm adding some black mixed in with a bit of purple just to color the eye in. I tend not to use black straight out of the tube or paint on the pan. I prefer to mix it with another color just so that it's not so strong and it's not so overpowering or overwhelming on your piece. So I always mix my colors and I don't use black. There are certain times when you need pure black, but for most of the time I try to mix it with whatever color I have or that I'm using in the particular piece. So now I'm going in and I'm looking at all the areas that have to be orange or that are going to be orange, and I'm retaining the shapes of the feathers, and I started with a light orange and then went over with the darker orange for the darker values, and then I went in with a more of a subtle sand tone just to cover those areas that have that particular color. Now you will see I had to erase and redo the beak because the beak was incorrect, but you'll see there I used a wet brush just to remove the excess paint and then repaint over that, and it was not an issue. The paint was removed and the paper didn't have any problems with me removing the wet paint as long as it is wet. So these colors of these paints are very vibrant and very saturated, so I had to use a lot of water to dilute the blue just so that I could get the entire bird covered with a light blue, which I'm going to slowly build up the layers of the feathers using different colors as I go along with this particular painting. So I definitely liked how this paper works with the paints because although it is textured, it does go down very smooth, which is something I really like about this paper. I am drying layers in between because I don't want any mixing, so I'm using a hairdryer just to dry the layers as I work through the piece. Now this set is a 48 set colors for the watercolors. Now something that it's normally always nicer to have a full set that has got a lot of colors that you just pick the color you need and you use it. But the benefit of having a set that's smaller is that you can mix a lot of the colors. Like I needed a lot of turquoise, blue greens, certain unusual blues. I needed those colors, and they were not available straight from the paint, so I couldn't just go to the palette and find the color I needed. So I had to mix a lot of the colors, which is a very good exercise in general for any artist to do, irrespective of what medium you use, is to use a limited color palette or use fewer colors, so that forces you to learn how to mix colors and how to get the exact precise colors that you need or that you're looking for whatever it is that you're working on. So for me, that wasn't an issue here. I needed these particular greens and particular turquoise, aquamarines, certain blue greens, blues as well, and I had no problem finding those colors or mixing those colors. And that's something that you get with just trial and error. If you don't try it, you won't be able to learn how to mix certain colors. As you paint more, you will get familiar with how to mix certain colors. So now you can see I'm going in with the darker colors. I'm mixing darker tones, darker blues, darker greens, darker turquoises, and I'm starting to now pull through the shapes of the feathers as well as the shadow areas of the feathers. I am going to come through with a much darker shadows or values for the real dark shadows, but for now I'm just working on creating those shapes of the feathers. Now I'm busy with the beak again, but I'm not using pure black. I'm using black mixed with a lot of water as well as some gray paint because I don't want it to be overwhelming. Now that I'm working on the head, you can see that I'm adding a lot of the darker values. Now that's not black as well. I've got a hint of black with a maybe a mixture of blue green or with blue, depending on where the shadow is or where the darker values are going to be. So I'm not using black straight because I don't want it to overpower my piece, and I want to have some of that color showing through. Remember, the feathers are overlapping, so they're not going to be black underneath. It's going to have a bit of color, so it's important to have a hint of color in the black when you're working with black, and rather than using straight black out of the tube. Another thing that I really liked about this particular paint, as well as the paper, it worked very smoothly. I was able to add texture, I was able to work smoothly, and the white of the paint really surprised me because I was able to use the white over certain areas of paint that I've already painted on, and it showed through really nicely. And usually I have to use white gouache because I don't have an opaque watercolor white, but in this paint the white works really well. So all in all, I definitely enjoyed working on this piece. The paints are vibrant, saturated, blend very well. The paper goes on smoothly, it can create texture, it's got a sort of texture to the paper, it can handle a lot of layers of water, which is a very good thing for watercolors. So I'm very happy with this, and I'm really glad that I've got both the paper and the paints as an addition to my art supplies, because definitely I see myself using these in the future for future projects. So I guess that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, don't forget to like and share. Feel free to comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. Till the next one, bye.